My name is Karen Knable, and I'm with the State of Vermont Mercury Education and Reduction Campaign. Today I would like to talk with you about mercury in our environment and mercury in products, as well as proper storage and proper disposal. Mercury is a naturally occurring element in the environment, and the symbol for mercury can be found on the periodic table and is indicated by the symbol Hg. Many mercury-containing devices have the symbol Hg within a circle to signify they contain mercury and cannot be placed in the regular trash. Mercury is a solid, a liquid, and a gas. It is a solid mined out of the ground and found in a rock called cinnabar, as presented in the center of the screen. It is a liquid at room temperature, and it is also a gas at room temperature. Something we should remember. This gas, however, cannot be seen with the naked eye. The photo shown here with the green background was taken using infrared light. Mercury is considered a heavy metal, as demonstrated by the pool ball being able to float in a container of mercury without sinking. Mercury also has the capability of binding with other materials, metals, specifically, as proven in the amalgam fillings that some of us may still have in our teeth. An amalgam filling is about 50% mercury combined with other metals such as tin, copper, and a small amount of zinc. And because of this binding capability, a broken mercury product should never be placed in a metal trash can. Because of mercury's interesting properties, it has been used for many products over the years, and for the purpose of proper disposal, we will talk about a few of those products. But first, how does mercury get into the environment and how can we be exposed to it? Mercury is a neurotoxin, meaning that it primarily affects the nervous system. The most exposure the average Vermonter would likely have is through the fish we eat. Mercury can get into the fish in New England primarily from coal-burning utilities in the Midwest. For Vermont, much of the smoke from those contaminants are carried by the jet stream moving across the country, bringing the mercury contamination to the northeast. The mercury travels by air and gets into our water bodies. It interacts with the bacteria at the bottom of the water body and comes up through the food chain to get into the fish we eat. Not just Vermont fish, however, contain mercury, but even fish that we purchase in the store, even canned tuna. The Vermont Health Department Fish Advisory Guidance for choosing fish lower in mercury can be found at their website and also located at mercvt.org. Of course, in addition to the coal-burning utilities, mercury from discarded mercury products can get into our environment if improperly disposed. Vermont was the second state in the nation to recognize and take action against trying to reduce mercury in the environment. After Minnesota, who focused on finding the products that contain mercury, sought out those manufacturers of mercury-added products to identify and label products that contain mercury. Secondly, Vermont banned those products from landfill disposal, and finally restricted the sale of many mercury-containing products for which there were alternatives, such as types of mercury thermometers, thermostats, measuring devices, switches, and relays, just to name a few. Other than fever thermometers, fluorescent bulbs, and mercury thermostats, mercury was used in many types of devices. Because of its sensitivity to heat, it was very good for thermometers of all types, and because of its ability to bind with other metals, and because it conducts electricity, it was very good for a lot of applications, such as switches, tilt switches, and items such as bilge and sump pumps, kill switches that turn something off and on when tipped over, such as clothes irons, riding lawnmowers, and man-down switches used for first responders. A common use of a tip switch in a chest freezer or an automobile hood turn lights off and on. And yes, even certain colors of neon signs contain mercury. These items are considered universal waste. and must be stored and managed carefully before recycling. Only hazardous waste or a household hazardous waste collection event is able to collect these types of electronic waste. The exception to this is mercury bulbs and thermostats. Vermont also established 2 laws that required manufacturers of mercury-added bulbs, such as fluorescent tubes or compact fluorescents, as well as manufacturers of mercury-containing thermostats, to establish programs for take-back and recycling. With the bulb recycling program established in Vermont, it was free for anyone who brought in any amount of mercury CFL bulbs or 10 or fewer linear bulbs. Collection sites are set up all across Vermont at many hardware stores, lighting stores, transfer stations, recycling centers, and solid waste facilities. With thermostat recycling, both hardware stores, HVAC wholesale outlets, and solid waste facilities are participating in the program that offers their customers not only free recycling, but also a $5 rebate for turning in mercury-containing thermostats. Both of these manufacturer-funded programs provide not only free of charge recycling for the customer, but also those involved in collection do not have to pay for recycling or shipping of those devices. If you'd like more information about these manufacturer-funded programs, go to mercvt.org or call 855-63-CYCLE. Facilities that collect mercury-containing bulbs from their customers have certain management and storage standards for mercury-containing bulbs. But what about businesses? Are there special storage requirements for businesses? Yes, you bet. Just like the facility that collects from the public, a business who uses and generates its own mercury waste or bulbs have the same standards and requirements by law. Mercury waste, because it is toxic, has specific management and storage requirements. If you are a business in Vermont, large or small, you must also manage any mercury-containing waste devices or products, mercury-containing products that your company generates. Mercury-containing waste is considered universal waste and is regulated by the Vermont Hazardous Waste Management Regulations. So let's talk about those standards and specifically for mercury-containing bulbs. First, they cannot go into the regular trash, even if they break, and they can't be crushed as a method of disposal and placed in the trash. Second, they must be stored in a box or a drum or a container that is structurally sound to prevent breakage. As a business or an individual or a facility, mercury bulbs can be self-transported. So you could self-transport those bulbs to a collection or drop-off site. The containers for those bulbs, even while you're storing them and waiting to take them to a collection site, must be stored in containers, and those containers must be a size that fit the bulb with a lid that can remain closed when you're not placing or removing bulbs. Never tape bulbs together. You need to place the bulbs individually into the container, and once the containers are full, close and seal the containers. You cannot stack boxes of bulbs higher than 5 feet, as the weight of that can crush the boxes below or fall over, causing even more damage. Because all mercury-containing waste products are universal waste, according to the Vermont Hazardous Waste Management Regulations, the product must be labeled to identify what specifically is in the container. In this case, it is universal waste lamps or bulbs. Lamps and bulbs are both used as the same term. Although this is a standard universal waste label, you can also comply with the requirement simply by writing the words directly on the box itself. You might say used lamps, universal waste lamps, and waste lamps. Secondly, according to the regulations, you must place a date on the box when you place the first mercury-containing bulb into it. Vermont hazardous waste management regulations require that a generator of mercury-containing bulbs must be able to provide information to identify that the box of universal waste mercury-containing bulbs has not been on site for more than 1 year. A date on the box is the easiest way to achieve that. If a waste management facility or retailer who sells bulbs is participating in the manufacturer-funded Mercury program, using the boxes for the program usually indicates that the labeling is on the side of the box. However, the date is something that the collector still needs to fill in, identifying when the box was first filled. What if a bulb accidentally breaks and you're placing a bulb into a collection container where others have been placed? That's considered incidental breakage. According to the Vermont Hazardous Waste Management regulations, you close that box up and you ship it off. However, if that same broken bulb breaks onto the floor, that's a different issue altogether. For instance, you must collect the pieces and the powder in a container. It cannot go into the trash, even if it's broken. We talked about that, and managed as hazardous waste. So now let's talk about how to clean up a mercury-containing bulb other than when it's in the box and sealed up and getting ready to go off to recycling. Mercury within a fluorescent bulb is vapor, and part of the mercury in the bulb is bound up in the phosphor powder that's within the bulb. Sometimes when a bulb breaks and gets released, the gas is released first, but sometimes you will even see a tiny droplet of elemental mercury escape from that broken bulb. So again, first and foremost, when anything that contains mercury breaks, you must not use a vacuum cleaner or a broom to sweep up the spill. In this case, it might be glass and powder. You still do not want to vacuum or give it more opportunity, the mercury that is, to be airborne. Also, if you vacuum mercury, your vacuum cleaner now will off gas every time you use it and put mercury vapor into the air. So you're probably going to have to get rid of the vacuum cleaner. Immediately after a spill, open windows and close off exterior doors and ventilation for the room. If you are using a heating or cooling system with central air, you may want to turn it off. Remember, mercury is a vapor at room temperature. Leave the room and restrict the access to the area for at least 15 minutes after you've opened the windows. Block off and remove children and pets. Ventilation is the key, so try to continue to ventilate even after you've cleaned up the spill. Have a container ready, a rigid container, and preferably glass, not metal, because remember, mercury binds to metal. Make sure the container is large enough to hold the broken glass as well as any of your cleanup materials. And the container will need to have a good tight lid, sealable if possible. When you get ready to clean up the spill, watch that you don't step into any of the debris. Wear disposable gloves if you have them. Remove all the pieces and powder you can find in the area, and remember, don't use a vacuum cleaner or a broom. Instead, find some stiff paper such as index cards or playing cards and carefully scoop up the fragments and powder, putting them into your container. Pick up any remaining powder and small pieces of glass with sticky tape and wipe the area clean with a damp paper towel. Make certain that everything that you've used goes into that container. Gloves, tape, paper towels, glass, phosphor powder, any mercury beads, close up the container. Wash your hands thoroughly. Depending on where you live in Vermont, you may have a location where you can bring this container directly to a hazardous waste disposal drop-off, or you may have to wait for a household hazardous waste collection day. To find your district or municipal contact information, go to 802recycles.com. If you need additional help, contact the Mercury program at 802-522-5736. Cleaning up a broken mercury bulb is one thing, but when elemental mercury spills, it is much more of an issue. We will touch briefly on what to do when your spill is from a device that contains liquid elemental mercury. First, know that there are certain circumstances when you can clean up a small mercury spill by yourself. And if it's too large, it needs to be left to the experts. So how can you tell if the spill is small enough to clean up on your own? Here's a few ways to make that determination. Is the spill from something that is equal to or less than a mercury fever thermometer? Is it confined? Is the spill confined to a small area? Is the surface area where it broke a hard and non-porous surface? If it does break on a porous surface, such as a rug or cloth, is that rug or cloth something that can be removed and disposed of? In other words, not permanent to your home or facility. So the spill might be a small amount, but if it's scattered all over your living room carpet, then you may have a more serious situation on your hands, and one that you cannot handle on your own safely. Just as the mercury bulb, elemental mercury is a bit more serious though, and more difficult to clean up. As we know, that mercury is vapor at room temperature. So the first thing we must always do is open the windows and ventilate the room. That may mean turning off the heat or air conditioning, closing vents, grates, or closing off the entire room to keep the vapor isolated to one space. Again, don't vacuum or sweep. Block off the area. Keep children, especially young children, infants, pregnant women, and pets out of the area. Leave the window open in the affected area as long as you can, depending on the weather. Get your container ready. This needs to be something with a tight lid. Glass jars with sealable lids are especially good because mercury cannot leach through glass. That's why I keep bringing glass up. Remember this when you think about using a Ziploc baggie, because if you call me, I'll still tell you to put that baggie into a glass jar. Wear disposable gloves if possible. Using stiff paper or cardboard, such as index cards, pushing the mercury droplets together and carefully scoop them up with the cardboard into your container. Some methods even talk about using an eyedropper to gather up mercury beads. Use a flashlight to help you find any small beads of mercury that may be remaining, as the mercury will reflect the light. For small droplets, use a strong adhesive tape like duct tape to pick up the remaining droplets. Wipe the area clean with a damp towel. Put all cleanup materials, tape, gloves, or anything that has mercury on it into the container. Place the container outside of the home or facility in an area that is inaccessible to children, preferably locked where the container cannot tip over or break or be accessed by someone accidentally. Wash your hands or shower if you think you might have mercury on your skin. Do not wash any clothing that you think might even be slightly contaminated in the washing machine. Remember, mercury binds with metal. If mercury was directly spilled on your clothing or an area rug, that should be included in the mercury debris in your container. At minimum, you want to place those in a large contractor's bag if you have used a smaller container for the mercury itself. If you need further information or instruction, go to mercvt.org for contact and emergency numbers. For proper management of the container with mercury debris, contact your local town, district. To locate the information for your district or town, go to 802recycles.com. If your spill is large, and it's larger than a fever thermometer spill, if the spill involves a large area, If the spill has been spread around, it's into crevices or other areas impossible to reach. If your spill is directly on a porous item such as wall-to-wall carpeting or upholstery, your spill is probably too large to manage on your own. Follow the first steps for a small spill, meaning restrict the area and ventilate, opening windows, and call the State Emergency Spill Program at 800-641-5005. They have on-call spill technicians to help you. For health questions, you can call the health department at 800-439-8550 and dial 0 to speak with an operator. Remember, all of the information, including fact sheets and numbers, can be found at mercvt.org. That's Merc like the first part of Mercury, VT like Vermont.org. Click on the icon that says proper disposal. Information on the page is divided into category of product type. Thank you again. My name is Karen Knabel. Thank you for your time today. And if you have any questions on any of the information shared in this presentation, please don't hesitate to contact me. The email address is there. My direct line is 522-5736, or you can call the hotline at 855-63-CYCLE. Thank you again for your time.